Hello. Namaste. Okay, everybody needs to stand up, please. Yes, because we know your brain needs food, calories, caffeine, oxygen. Okay? So you need to remember to breathe. Right? All right. I think me too. I think I should breathe too, right? Okay. So we started, how many were here a few days ago? We started with our hands-on workshop in an unfriendly workshop setting. So I want to thank for the presentation and Rajni and Bhakti and for all of your efforts. And I'm probably one of your problem children that over the last 3 or 4 months. You may sit down. That's okay. Unless you want to stay standing, that's okay too. I don't mind. You can move off to the side. Oh, okay. Okay. So you're gonna hear a minute from the Pope, Dr. Gardner himself. He and I have been pen pals for 30 or 40 years. Oh.
वॉल्यूम कर दो
Exactly 40 years ago, I published a book which I frames the theory of non-human intelligence. In that book, I proposed that the human scale is best followed as a set of separate intelligences rather than single intelligence presumably measured by IQ tests. All over the world, the idea of multiple intelligences made sense to parents, counselors, educators, teachers, indeed anyone who has observed. Greetings, I'm Howard Gardner. 45 years ago, I began an ambitious program of research in human cognition. And exactly 40 years ago, I published the book for which I am best known, Frames of Mind, the Theory of Multiple Intelligences. In that book, I proposed that the human intellect is best thought of as a set of separate intelligences rather than a single intelligence presumably measured by IQ tests. All over the world, the idea of multiple intelligences makes sense to parents, counselors, educators, teachers, indeed anyone who has observed many young people. Such individuals realize that because a person is strong or weak in one area of knowledge or practice, you cannot predict whether that person will be strong or weak in other areas. I'm primarily a researcher. I have not set up schools or museums or businesses, nor devised tests to assess the intellectual profiles of individuals. I'm pleased that others were inspired to develop these ideas in various ways. And now, you'll have a chance to hear about the ideas, practices, and recommendations of Dr. Brandon Schurer, who, for many years, has been working in the area of multiple intelligences. Please give him a warm welcome. Greetings. I'm Howard Gardner. 45 years ago,
He just won't go away.
I began an ambitious program of research
That's true.
in cognition.
It won't go away, right? This is an idea that has survived many changes in education, in a field of education that is famous or infamous for fads and open classrooms, things that come and go. And MI has endured more or less along the way. And there's some very good reasons for that. And I'd like you to hear from Dr. Maya Riuz from Puerto Rico. She was the director of creative engagement. This is a career institute in Puerto Rico in the United States. And I worked with her and her faculty for a number for a number of years. And she capsulizes, which I think will be directly applicable to what you all do. So she wrote this in response to my request. She said, "Hi, Brandon. For the past few years, I have studied a lot about the wonderful world of multiple intelligences. And I think I have become an expert in interpreting the students' MI profiles, as well as applying these interpretations in practical ways. MI assessment is much more than a mere questionnaire. It is a working tool that, if used properly, can become the keystone for the success of any given institution and the students and the teachers. The retention of students at our campus has increased by at least 3% compared to last year. That's great, but its main benefit has been solving many problems between faculty members and the student body. Whenever the director or any member of the faculty brings to my attention any kind of a problem with a student, I analyze the professor and the student's profile. Then I give them a set of recommendations based on those profiles, and these have helped in solving some particular hard situations. Though through these incidents, I have sat with professors to analyze the MI profiles of their students. As a result, professors feel more empathy towards their students. Oh, keywords there. More empathy towards their students, which in turn has made them either modify their teaching approach or, in other cases, adapt the assigned work to the intelligence of particular students, and many other changes in the classroom. Our reward has been to have more satisfied students. I believe in what we do, and I'm passionate about it because I see the results right in front of my eyes every day. The MI questionnaire has been offered to all new students within the integration to the school. I'm very happy with these results because they convince me more and more each time of the accuracy of the results in predicting a student's MI profile. Thank you for sharing with me the future vision of how we can personalize instruction. As an aside, I wanted to say that I use MS Copilot a little bit as my research assistant. I think it loves me, right? Because it's always telling me what wonderful work, interesting work I'm doing. So I don't think you're going to love me at the end of this little time together, but I do hope you will love the multiple intelligences. That's the idea, right? Is that within each one of us, there is these, there we go, these electric connections, right? These power plants within the brain and within the body. But we can't see intelligence happening. It's invisible, so it's like sailing and seeing the wind. How many of you have ever sailed before and tried to learn how to see the wind? Well, you can see it in Delhi. But when you're out on the lake, you can't see the wind so much. You have to see the effects of that wind. So, so I'm a neuropsychologist, and neuroscience is popping up everywhere in the world. You ever read in the newspaper on your feed and Facebook something coming out of the neuroscience brain labs? Just last night, I got 2 notices regarding social isolation directly speeds up cognitive decline. Social isolation, that's not good, is it? And now we have scientific evidence. We kind of knew that, but the scientific evidence is good to have. Right? And then the second one was music improvisation rewires the brain in real time. That's interesting. musical intelligence. So this has all been made possible by these scans that we can do of seeing thinking taking place in real time. This is a major technological advance back in the 80s and the 90s, and here we have a scan of a musician's brain. The areas that are responsible for music are lighting up. And so Howard Gardner defines intelligence as, if anyone was here, who was here a few days ago, do you remember the definition? I always start with this because as a poet, I believe the definition of words is very important, right? How we define things matters. So this is a quick review in case you forgot because you were partying so hard last night. You erased the hard drive and all those memories that you didn't make. So intelligence is the ability to solve a problem. Well, yeah, of course it's to solve a problem. That's what engineers do. That's what you do all day long. Okay? You solve problems. But it's also the ability to create a product. And this doesn't show up on the IQ test exams. It doesn't show up in our traditional academic way of thinking. This is that great revolution in AI, is ability that large language models, natural language, to create a product, not just to spit out numbers and whatnot. But the third part of this that you do all day long that gets neglected and not seen as an intelligence is the ability to provide a service. We think, oh, you have a nice personality, but we don't think you are interpersonally smart. This changes how we see them. It changes how we see students. And the big area that I call the invisible intelligence is the intrapersonal. This is our self-smarts. This is the story that we are telling ourselves, built on the stories that other people have told us about ourselves. And the brain networks involved in this are, and a very important one, is called the default mode network. And somebody asked the question about how does rest impact learning? And we have some good but limited evidence that it really does make a big difference in how you consolidate, how the brain consolidates memories and builds on networks. The brain just doesn't have one little spot up here that regulates doing math or that regulates visual thinking. It has networks of energy flowing around. And so those networks get consolidated when we have rest. There, we answered one question so far tonight. That's goal number one accomplished. Intrapersonal teaching. So I have lists, long lists of different actual practical activities for each of the 8.5 intelligences. And I don't have time tonight to go over all those lists with you, but these are just a few highlights. I believe the intrapersonal, I'm starting with this one because I think it's the invisible, neglected intelligence. And so I'd like to spend a little more time. I'll zip through the other ones so we can get to some lesson planning ideas. But I think this one is needs to be given visual, linguistic, interpersonal recognition, because it has to be channeled through the other intelligences. So doing things like self-assessments, metacognition, thinking about your thinking, self-evaluation, goal setting, goal revision, strategic planning, all these high-level things that you are so good at, but maybe naturally you came into the world with those, but they were built by your environment. We are building, these are the students who are good at this that you love. These are the people who can do this naturally, are your favorites. Feelings matter, right? Often neglected in classrooms where we're focused on content. History and planning, my own life. Because the core of this intelligence is who am I? What are my strengths? What are my limitations? Now we all have them, although some of your students and some of the parents may not believe they have them, right? But MI helps us to have a more realistic understanding of each individual. MI language. Okay, this is my other big takeaway. So if you only take away one thing with you today, use the language of multiple intelligence to describe that invisible force called thinking. Visual thinking, visual spatial, picture smarts, even small children, picture smarts, kinesthetic thinking, body smart. When you use this language, you give students and teachers power tools. And if this conference is about power, these are our power tools. This is what you heard Mayra talk about doing. She was giving language for her professors as well as the students to solve problems, to create products, and be happy. So these are the frontal lobes, the front part of your brain, and you're in the forehead. If you're feeling a little hot and it's heating up over here, it's because you're thinking so hard within yourself, and you're also thinking about who this guy is up there on the stage, and what's his purpose, who is he, and you're activating what you do naturally, that you're very strong at, is the interpersonal intelligence, the social intelligence, the people smarts, the social sensitivity. This is why we can get overwhelmed in the course of a day, because we're so sensitive. It's like too TMI, right? Too much information, and we have to figure out how to activate our filters. Persuasion, and we've identified specific brain regions for each of the 8 intelligences, and that was a big part of my work, was finding out the neural mechanisms. Reading fiction improves interpersonal understanding of other people. There's a movement in our academia to limit the amount of fiction reading and to focus more instead on the hard science and factual information. And that's not such a good thing if you're limiting their interpersonal understanding. Fiction is a good tool for doing that and for becoming leaders. Your teaching and your staff are teaching future leaders. Right? And there are certain pillars, I call them the 4 key strengths, 4 or 5 strengths that effective leaders use. And the 2 that we just talked about, the intra and the inter, are part of that, especially the intra, which is recognizing your weaknesses and then knowing how to manage them. This may be very hard for some of your students, some of the parents of your students. A hard time. My perfect little child, right, doesn't have any weaknesses, and because we have this model of perfection that we're striving towards, which is nice, but it's unrealistic. Human beings, the brain is not perfect, right? It has crazy wiring in the brain. We're not perfect. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. So the left hemisphere, when you have a problem, somebody you're working with, and you're trying to figure out how to hit something. Okay, so take your left hand, and you start leaning and start scratching the side of your head. You're like, what the heck am I going to say to solve to this person? What does he really need me to say? Well, when you're doing that, you're trying to activate this left hemisphere of your brain. That's the linguistic processing. You're trying to find just those right words, right? The software, that sort of wetware up in the brain, you're trying to find those words by activating that part of your brain, which may or may not work. If it works for you, great. What? Wrong one. Okay, so linguistic, use the MI language to reveal learning. You all know about this one. You guys, I don't have to spend any time with this. But the thing I do want to emphasize that you may forget in all of our writing and our computers and our software is the power of stories. This is the original school, is when we tell stories and when we... So linguistic teaching, I think of it as a word from you is a powerful thing. Right? And sometimes we forget the power of a single word to change things for the better and for the worse. So when we tell an inspiring story, we can change a difficult situation. Listen to the students' important stories. So the other half of linguistic is not just the speaking and the reading and the writing, it's the listening part, and listening for those stories. Find the poetry moments in students' activities. This is often neglected and underappreciated as well. Stories spark images, and they spark memories. And when we activate that powerful imagination that human beings are endowed with, okay, get to take both your hands, this is hands on, and then put them up. Remember to breathe. Okay, now link them together and put it on the back of your head, and you feel that sort of roundy part of your cranium, right? You can lean back there. If you massage that a little bit, it feels kind of good. And you can picture yourself. Hey, I thought we were going on a cruise. This is more like work. He promised us a cruise line. If I wasn't sitting here, I would maybe go to the mountains or go to the beach, go to my favorite chair, instead of sitting here. And you start picturing yourself. You take a little mini vacation. And as the sound of my voice drones on and on and on, all of a sudden you find yourself wandering somewhere. Well, that's because your visual spatial intelligence is being. This is one of our secret superpowers, especially those unique students and those unique people you work with called boys. Men, the male gender, for some reason, tends to score higher on our visual spatial tasks. There's a lot of reasons we could go into about that. But what gets overlooked and neglected sometimes is artistic design and aesthetic sensibility, which don't show up on any tests. Right? When was the last time you took a test that said how your aesthetic sensitivity was? We can give tests for visual problem solving, but not so much for our aesthetic sensitivity. It's also spatial awareness, finding your way around. It's working with objects. We've identified neural regions responsible for this. This is one of our sort of survival strategies. Because if you went out on the hunt, guys, and you didn't find your way back, right? You're cut out of the evolutionary line there because your visual spatial problem solving was not as strong as it should have been. So seeing is believing. We all need to see pictures in order to make sense of the words, to make sense of ideas. This is a neuron happening there, like a synapse. What pilots have to do? Well, I'm going to choose a really good pilot tonight to fly home to the U.S. One who's very strong on the visual spatial intelligence. This is one of their key skills, of course, they have to have. So if a 6-year-old child can have 200 corporate logos memorized by first grade, just imagine what we could do when we purposefully harness each learner's visual MI strengths. There's some untapped power in our classrooms with the visual spatial intelligence, because most of our teachers are selected through academic success. Not if they were able to find their way on a map and create a nice design. That's not how we choose teachers. So in our classrooms, we all teach through our strengths. And one of my second messages, if you go home with anything today, is that we teachers all have strengths and weaknesses, and we tend to maximize our strengths and neglect, minimize, denigrate our personal weaknesses. And then children, our colleagues, suffer because of that neglect. And so now books, graphic novels, strategic planning, using visual noting. Here's the third takeaway today. So you have to tell your colleagues it wasn't just a bunch of Harvard-educated neuro dish-dash. Third thing is all children should be taught mind mapping, visual notating. They don't have to use it, but they should know that it's a tool available for their use. I hate it personally because I'm weak in the visual spatial, but I know it's there. And I know that I can access it because there are some very simple and good strategies for visual noting. colors, shapes, icons, symbols, all to help us, our brain, to process abstract information. And so you're sitting there thinking, oh, now I see what you mean. Oh, I see what you mean. When I see what you mean, I grasp it, and then I'm beginning to understand it. I can visualize me doing this in my school sometime. Mental visualization. I'll summarize this mental visualization: mind mapping, note-taking, draw it, sketch it, cartoon it, PowerPoint presentations, assemble it, construct it, craft it. Right? So many different ways to process visual spatial information. Oh yeah, have fun with it too. This is the other thing that the brain likes to do, is to have fun with our strengths and to suffer through our weaknesses. We know now, so there's two areas of the brain. You don't have to do any more hands on stuff, right? There's two areas of the brain responsible for kinesthetic intelligence. You can take your fingers like this and go right in the middle of your head. It's trapped down the sides. It's called the motor strip. There's a left side and a right side. The right side of the motor strip controls the left side of your body. The left motor strip controls the right side of your body. It's a wacky system, but who knows who invented it. The other part is back here, deep in the brain, called the cerebellum, the little brain, and that's responsible for handwriting, balance, fine motor skills. How many of you know about ADHD children? Does this sound familiar? Have you ever noticed they have terrible handwriting? Huh. How does that happen? Why do they have such bad handwriting? It's a neurological thing, right? Because there are deep connections between the cerebellum and the frontal lobes. And now ADHD is many times more of a breakdown of the frontal lobes and this communication system with the cerebellum and visual motor integration. So there you go, a little neuro tip to take home with you. What else? So the kinesthetic intelligence, right, is the one that is, oh, that's not really intelligent, right? That's just movement. That's like, I catch the ball, I run fast. Right? That's dumb. Yeah. My wife is a dancer and choreographer, and she would disagree strenuously with that comment, that it's not just dumb movement. It's the skillful use of physical movement for both athletics, yes, indeed, but also this dexterity, but also expressive movements in dance. Right? So when I'm communicating with you right now, you are hearing words that you're translating. You are also watching what I'm doing. Right? So if I take my finger and I point, and say, I'm going to make a point now, all of a sudden there's a cue to you. Oh, this gesture means something. So gestural communication is a very powerful brain function. The power of intention. We read those gestures, and this is cultural based, but it's also built into the brain to interpret the meaning of those gestures. Very powerful. We're thinking about a science concept. We're thinking about abstract things. How do we connect those two physical movements? Now, many of you are getting a little nervous and a little heebie-jeebies when I make this sense, because this is not a strength review, right? And it's a little makes me a little nervous. Hey, I'm doing a performance up here. I can't be doing, activities I'm not good at, can I? Fourth tip to take home, I know how to get him, is use your aids and assistants. No one's strong in everything. We've got to make our little repertoire of tools that are going to help us, and we can grab into our bag of tricks. AI can be one of those tools along the way. Not for movement, perhaps. Or is it? We'll find out. Stay tuned. Now, the kinesthetic intelligence, okay. Let me point this out real quick, because I put the slide in here, so I better use it. Is that each intelligence gets expressed in the real world in at least 4 distinct ways. The one way is academic and convergent problem solving. Bioengineering, movement analysis, coaching, all do the kinesthetic, that's expressing it that way. Also, creative innovation. Kinesthetic, all the intelligence get expressed in creative innovation. Improvisational dance, and mime and such, as well as aesthetic judgment. Right? Is it beautiful? And also practical problem solving. So I always include this because these intelligences aren't invisible, but they get expressed in very different ways. And you can be weak or stronger in any of these four quadrant areas. Embody ideas in drama, right? And cooperative learning, cooperative role playing, and helping students to figure out how to use movement to maximize their understanding. Teaching science through dance. That sounds a little bizarre, but that actually the water cycle, the rain cycle, many ecological systems can be expressed through movements, and this helps their brains process that information, particularly for the students who need to move with the knowledge. Handwriting notes is more superior than type notes. Right? You're connecting handwriting movements with ideas and information. Here are a group of computer scientists. I don't know if you can see this. But there are computer scientists at a conference like this one. And what is it about this picture that's kind of surprising? They're not sitting in front of screens just reading, right? They're like this. They're gesturing. They're talking. They're like this. They're showing. The concepts get expressed in our movements and our actions, even with computer scientists. And surgeons. The last thing you want to hear during your neurosurgery is, oops, sorry, no. Fine motor skills are also a part of your kinesthetic and visual spatial intelligence. So, kinesthetic teaching, this moves me beyond words. Beyond words. And this is why, as academics, we hate this intelligence, because it's beyond words. And we're good at words. We love our words. And this is beyond words. Oh, that makes us, I'm not so comfortable with that. Yeah, it's okay for you sporty types, but do I have to do that? I don't know, I'm not so comfortable. What gesture represents the topic? Demonstrate the movement connected. Find or invent a game to use that information. So movements come from ancient traditions, right? Movement has been a way that communities bond together. When you move together, you feel together. You think together. When you share the same movements, all of a sudden the room shrinks down in size. It's not a collection of 100, 200 individuals anymore when you're doing the same movement. All of a sudden we're together. And when we combine our movement with this thing called music, all of a sudden the power increases. And I want to point out one of the things, since I've been in India, I found out that my hearing isn't as fast as your talking is. And so I have slow hearing, and I have to install my little speed hearing device, because one of your power tools, and all your teachers' power tools that you have for engaging people, is the sound of your voice. If your job is to engage attention, you want to engage, not to repel attention with the power organ. This is my algebra teacher in 8th grade. Well, class, today, please open up the book, chapter 34, and I'll drop the page to see 10 questions. Please leave questions. If you have any problems, just come up to my desk and I'll be happy. We're putting the brain to sleep. And he droned on and on. And I'm going on and on here too. But it's to make a point like this with the sound of my voice. Okay, sometimes it's okay to be quiet. Right? Because we're listening also for the feeling that's involved. Not just the tone, but the feeling, not the concept, but the tone communicates as much as the words. This is true, right? This is not like I didn't just go make this stuff up. They did a study that a professor's personality can be measured by students within seconds just by hearing their voice, right? So much information is being communicated musically, right? That power, the sensitivity, sound, rhythms, tone, pitch, instrumental, vocal, creating songs, musical appreciation, all changes. Things change when you invoke sounds. And the power of rhythm, rhymes, and reason. To memorize complicated things. How many of you know the A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Right? How many of you learned those? I could teach it to you today like this. Repeat after me. A, B, C, D, E, F. How many are hearing a little song in the back of your mind? You hear a little ABC song? Yeah, right. That's the way you were taught it, right? You watched Coco Melon on YouTube growing up, and the ABC song was sung in this happy little rhyme and tune that you don't teach children the ABCs the boring method. No, that's child abuse. Yeah, you can't get away with that anymore. Right? We're not under the British. We don't have the British school model anymore that you learn it or you suffer the consequences. We don't do that anymore. Paddling, sorry, outlawed. Oral dysfunction and malpractice, not allowed anymore. Right? Because our little darlings, we need to pamper them and be good to them. So there's lots of ways you can use music. These are Christmas carols using chemistry ideas. Right? They made up songs. Fractions are fun. How many believe fractions are fun? I'm not so sure about that. But when you have a happy little rhyme to go with it, all of a sudden you take the drudgery out of it and you music teaching. Oh, this rings a bell. You've heard this before. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know deep inside you. You've heard this before. You've heard this before. You've heard this before. It echoes. I'm giving you permission and challenging you to put it to use. What song applies to this topic? If we have the all-day workshop, we would have multiple intelligence songs. We would have lyrics to create about the study strategies. Oh, here's a good idea. Write a song title, a jingle, or a rhyme. What feeling fits this topic in sound or song? Bright-eyed. This is what we think of smart, the logical mathematical intelligence. Of course, that's half of IQ. Right? Thank goodness we have this. MI is not anti-IQ by any means. It expands the model of what we understand as being smart. This is abstract thinking, inductive and deductive reasoning, school math, everyday problem solving, strategy games, strategic thinking. It's only logical. You know this. Timelines, use causal connections, graphic organizers. Explain the reason why people with strong IQs are often, they want to know why. They're investigating, right? They're looking for the cause and effect. Tell me why. And those children are so annoying. Because they want to know why. They're a little logical, mathematical reasoning. And taxonomies is our logical, how the world works, right? How do we put the world together? We have these nice logical categories. And this is what Howard thought was the extent of how we understand the world. until he did further research and realized he missed something in the 7 original intelligences, and further research both in the brain as well as in cultures in the world was the naturalist intelligence. Now, if I had another hour this afternoon, you'd all rebel and run out of the room like a herd of wild wildebeest out of the way, but I would spend lots of time helping you to understand and appreciate and love the naturalist intelligence. It's why we can survive, right? Why we're here today as a species is because we have a strong naturalist intelligence. We can read living patterns. We understand patterns of where the animals will be, how things grow, the seasons, ecological systems, and how to drive in Delhi. It's not logical, right? This is running with the herd, right? You don't have time to stop and logically think about how to get from point A to point B, let alone C, D, E, and F. You have to go instinctual. Pure instinctual, activating that naturalist, understanding the flow of energy around you in the herd. And as a matter of fact, I have spoken already too long, and I sense the flow of your mental energies beginning to. So I'm going to go very quickly, and I promise to leave time for questions. Okay. Living patterns, animal care, plant care. Oh, and I have to tell you the research I've been doing, finding the mother tree, plants and animals. The research I've been doing for the last 10 years is the proposed ninth intelligence, and that is the existential intelligence. I am the commander of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I have a terrible sense of direction. I give up. I'll never figure out the meaning of life. Say to me, right? Existential thinking. The big questions of life. Teenagers. How many of you have teenagers in your lives, professional or personal? This is when those asking of big questions often goes online. We begin to be able to have the cognitive capacity to think abstractly and to think about bigger principles. So life's big questions, to be concerned with the ultimate issues of life and to engage in transcendental concerns. Whew. Okay, we don't have another hour, so let's just get to the answers to the question. These are philosophy and mythologies, are ways that we address these big questions, our religions, what philosophers do, what mythology and arts address these big questions. And it happens in everyday life also, helps us get through adversity, gets through traumas, and how to live with death. How to live life fully. So what? Big ideas there, Dr. Scheer. Good for you, go to Harvard, all that. So what? What's it going to do tomorrow morning to me? How am I going to help teach it? Well, let me just really try to summarize this quickly, which I could never do, but I'll try. My inspired teaching is the thoughtful art of translation. How do we translate concepts and ideas so that more brains out there that operate differently than ours can grasp them and use them? It's building bridges. It's also building bridges and connections. And third of all, it's strengths versus limitations. We all have strengths, we all have limitations. So one, leverage strengths to build limitations to maximize success. Just because we have limitations doesn't mean we don't have to do anything about them, or maybe we don't. This is a clinical judgment that I'll express a little bit, but how do we use our strengths to build our weaknesses? 2, diligently build the intrapersonal self-awareness. I think I've said that once already, right? I must think it's important. Whatever. 3, use the MI language to describe that invisible force called thinking. Oh, wait, you've heard that again already. There must be an echo in here, right? So one of my colleagues, Debbie Walker, says an MI class chart gives me an edge because I know more about the students than they know about themselves. So we have a lot of kids. How are we supposed to manage all these different brains? Dr. Shear, I can handle 8 intelligences times 30 children times 50 children. What am I supposed to do? One simple way, simplistic way, is to create a class chart and to note highlights as well as limitations areas in need of attention. Oh, I'm not going to read this. You have questions. So, but let me tell you, and I call it extraordinary education. The RAVE idea, first of all, is simply recognize students, problem students, gifted students, simply recognize the invisible, the merely average students. We all want to be recognized, we want to be seen. And MI language gives us the power to do that. That's the beginning, that's the first step. The second step is to appreciate. Oh, so that doodling you're doing, while I'm talking about math, you're using your visual spatial intelligence to make those cartoons and the 4-color pen that you love to make notes with so much. So now I appreciate what you're doing. I recognize it, and I appreciate it, and I value it by calling it a part of your intelligence. It's not just some silly thing you're wasting time. Right? I appreciate it. And that's what MI does, is it elevates mere hobbies to, do I have 1 minute or 2? 30 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 minutes. Okay. You know, when you get into flow, how many of you have heard of the concept, the psychology of optimal experience, state of flow? All sense of time goes away. It disappears. Right? So that's what's happening here. The last of all is it's all nice if you use the MI words, you recognize, you value, you appreciate, but then you have to engage it. You can't just be all happy talk and be nice. You have to challenge them to use it and to continue to improve it. And this is when we get to maximum intrinsic motivation. There's another big Harvard term that I've always, schools are often based and rooted in extrinsic motivators, right? Oh, such a good boy. You did your homework. Right? Pats on the head, awards, recognition, social status. That's all extrinsic. And that's a part of life. It's important. But if that's all you have, what kind of world do you have? You have kind of an out of balance sick world. Right? What you really are want to be, in my humble opinion, is you want to be arranging classrooms and schools to promote intrinsic motivation. What we heard the speaker before talk about lifelong learning and the passion for learning. That comes from within, right? And when there are strategies for accentuating that in our classrooms, and that's the engagement part. In our raving about students, not just their strengths, but recognizing that they have limitations also, and that's okay. So 3 generations impact. As I was preparing for today, I came across this concept in Indian philosophy that we want to be thinking in terms of 3 generations. And MI has been doing that, and with your help, it will continue to do that. And think about who in your life needs this information. Who in your life needs this information? Professional life, personal life. In my own personal life, I always have to include my grandson. He's a boy wonder, Captain Underpants. Anybody familiar with the Captain Underpants series of high literature? Yes. He's now reading them for himself, which is blows my mind. So the Midas profiling was my tool that I developed back in the prehistoric dinosaur age in order to help us to recognize the value of each person and to not merely label, There's no numbers here on the first 2 pages, but to describe how we think the strongest and the best and use the most. So it's a 3-page, I created a 3-page, this is my profile, by the way. We all have strengths, we have limitations. I have bumpy profiles, as Howard says. And then, last thing I think is this last time. Yeah, the challenge, here's mom and dad at the table, and they said, oh, here comes the enigma. Children, parents don't always understand their children, do they? So one of my goals, my high goal is to create what I think of as a dialogue of discovery. Right? When we give a test, we learn something about that. We have a little window into something. It may be very accurate, but it could be part of a much larger whole movie, not just a little, it could be a whole video. And we may be missing all of the context. So how do we get around this? Because teachers only see one little slice of a student's life. Parents see a slice, and sometimes a distorted slice of a child's life. Right? And this can be part of our job is to facilitate a dialogue of discovery. What is a dialogue of discovery? It is where we classroom performance, what the teacher sees, what the parent sees, and what the child sees. And this is not, MI is not a quick fix, not a magic wand, right? When I talk to schools about taking on, I say, think about a 3-year plan. Where do you want to be in 3 years with this? How does this integrate with what you're already valuing, what you're already doing? You're doing holistic education. You're doing bits and pieces of a lot of these. How does this fit, and where would you like to be with it? How would it help you solve a problem? How would it help you to create something new and achieve your goals, right, over time? What now? You are not alone. Here we go. You are not alone. Team up. Give teachers time to collaborate with each other. Team up. You have a wealth. MI lesson planning, there are strategies, some nice templates, there's lots of plans available. You don't have to create this stuff from scratch. It's been around a while. And matter of fact, you can use your Copilot or your ChatGPT to help you do this. You don't have to do it all by yourself, but there are some nice forms to make learning meaningful, moving, and sometimes messy along the way, right? Just here you are. Mr. Osborne, may I be excused? My brain is full, and I'm sure that you've gotten a full brain and started to fall off. And hopefully we've avoided this, right? Nobody? Any brain explosions? No pop? No pop? No messy? No? Okay, we're good? All right? Okay, oh, wait, can I tell you one more thing? Okay, so if you have a 3-year plan, you say, oh, MI, so good, how do we do this? Okay, in the 3-year plan, step 1 is awareness. Why did I spend so much time on helping you understand and love each of these intelligences? You can't be a good mechanic if you don't understand a screwdriver, a wrench, right? Pliers, a drill. What are the tools that you're using to teach with? So the first step is simply to create awareness. And paying attention. Don't do anything different. Start paying attention, seeing and labeling that invisible force called thinking, right? Both in your students, with your colleagues, in your projects, in your lesson plans. That's the first step. Very fundamental. We overlook a lot because we're not paying attention in this way, with this in mind. Right? Step 2, acceptance. There's resistance. Go figure. There's resistance to this from the IQ establishment, from within our own selves. And that emotional resistance will get in the way. It's a roadblock. It will get in the way of change. But because you're also interpersonally intelligent, you'll figure out how to keep moving while dealing with resistance and acceptance. That resistance is an emotional resistance. And third of all is pilot it. Try it out. Because those skeptics out there are the show me ones. And you can move it. It's going to be the yes, and it's going to be the hell no. And it's in the middle, there's the maybe, Show me. So pilot something out. Find the leading edge. Who are your early adopters? Who does this already make sense to? Your art teacher. And I keep going, integrate. Then begin to find out how I can integrate this into over here, into our inclusion programs. How can we create PEP plans, personal educational plans that accentuate strengths as well as recognizing weaknesses and saying, hey, how can we use some simple games that are matching the students' interests and strengths to improve the weaknesses. Right? So inclusion oftentimes overlooks the strengths, so focus on building what's wrong. That's okay, but it's not enough. Right? Am I done? No, you don't hear that. Oh, thank you, Howard. There we go. Small changes make big difference. Okay, how long do we have, Gary? Okay, who's, did I say something that really bothered you today? Did I say something that really rang a bell with you today? Yes, sir. They're looking. There we go. Where's your teacher voice, right?
Very good afternoon. Sunanda Kapoor from high school. This topic is really close to my heart, and it was a treat listening to you. I have always been reading about multiple intelligence.
Right.
And it was nice seeing you suggesting some activities. So when you were talking about musical systems, there was a term limbic system.
Yeah, the limbic system. Right.
So I read about it, the amygdala.
Yeah, the amygdala.
Since we deal with primary students.
Right.
And they show a lot of tantrums. At times they get agitated, aggressive, and they throw things.
Yes.
So please enlighten us with some of the activities which we do, because I know about, I researched about reading, that all the temporal lobes,
right,
occipital lobes, and prefrontal lobes are required to read properly.
To read properly.
But now I would request you to suggest some of the activities to calm down the amygdala. Because
other than
I
drugs,
know about this.
other than drugs, that's what you would prefer
please,
not to.
because that would help all the primary teachers to,
right,
because I only know one activity, but it would be great if you could suggest more so that the amygdala is calmed down and children are more stable in the classes.
So these are developmentally delayed children? These are children who are like acting like 2-year-olds?
No, Dr. Brandon, at times the children are coming and we call it the separation anxiety. They are coming, they're crying.
COVID
at
children,
times
are these COVID children?
it happens that they need attention.
They need
at times,
attention.
yeah. So at times they cry, at times they do something to get that attention.
Right.
And that time musical intelligence also won't help, because they are not ready to listen, they are not ready to, so I read somewhere that they need hug to be calmed down, and this part of the palm to be pressed to calm down the prefrontal cortex. So what I learned is that this is the prefrontal cortex.
Right.
But if you could suggest more activities to calm down our students, our teachers would really be grateful.
Well, it takes a balanced approach. Right? You're talking about emotional dysregulation.
Yes, absolutely.
And so Asperger's is a big deal, and because we're seeing it more and we're able to label it more. I wish I had a quick fix right off the top of my head for you.
You are so good with a lot of activities, so.
Right. So, you know, in ADHD and Asperger's, what's underappreciated many times, once again, you have to do the whole broad spectrum assessment. This is where I always have to begin. I could give you some general strategies, but it won't only help if I really understand that specific child. This is where the MI assessment is the starting point. Because I've had teachers such as yourself come to me and say, oh, this student can't read, developmentally delayed, give me some suggestions. And I'm sitting there going, well, I'm not a reading expert, but here are some general strategies. And then I thought, wait a second, I don't know who this child is. I haven't done a full MI assessment in order to actually do a strengths versus weaknesses approach. That's where you have to begin, in my humble opinion. I didn't give you a good idea until I know what that profile looks like. And then we could say, oh, here's the weakness, but here's the strength. Now we're going to creatively come together, and we're going to have the parents reinforcing this, if they need the hugs, if that'll work for them or not. And so that's a starting point, is with the MI assessment.
Thank you so much.
Myself, Rubu Gupta from Sarita Vihagiri. Thank you so much, sir, for such an enriching session. My question is how MI can serve as a bridge between child's academic excellence and holistic development, rather than being seen as an alternative approach.
Oh, yes, I saw that question. So you have to embed it with what you're doing. And you have to find that the language helps. You know, sometimes people are allergic to BMI language. They're allergic to calling it intelligence. And what I mean by that is sometimes in the Netherlands now, they're calling it multiple aptitudes. And then, all of a sudden, parents are more inclined to accept this, that this is a part. We can't see the whole child, so how we're defining holistic, right? Social, emotional, physical, existentially, right? So we redefine and we're expanding then the words that we're already using. Or we're getting more specific about how we're doing that. So the bridge, I think, sometimes is in language and showing the connection between what they already know and taking those baby steps one step further. And then sometimes so the kinesthetic intelligence is one that many people are allergic to and have a bad reaction, is we just leave that off for the side. So one step at a time to build those verbal bridges, and then finding research, right? Finding books, finding articles on the internet, loaded with all sorts of personal testimonies, and what works, showing what works. That can help build a bridge. Intellectually, you have the emotional, then you have the intellectual acceptance. I've answered all your questions. Yay! All right. One more? You're ready to go home, right? Your brain's full. Excuse me, my brain's full.
Hello. Pleasant afternoon, sir. Sir, that day I had put a question to you with regards to how do we manage the planning of the lessons,
Yes.
Considering MI
Yes.
with different age groups. If we start early, that is fine. But the students right now who are at an age who are teenagers or maybe 6th onwards.
Right.
So how do we plan the activities for them?
Great. That's a very individual
I know it's a
institution.
detailed,
It's a
comprehensive answer.
very
Maybe
decision, but I want to tell you that it's been done across the board. Starting in preschool, starting in kindergarten, they scale the language down. You're being people smart, you're being self-smart. And by even teaching young children to use those words, you're empowering them. And then, of course, the language changes as you grow and mature along the way. So, and you can start at any point. Even with old people, we need to know this too. The brain is always growing and changing. Somebody asked that question. Let me kind of segue from your question. Can these intelligences be improved? Yes, of course they can. If they couldn't be improved along the way, well, why would we have schools and why would we have institutes to do things? They can do that. But perhaps they're capped, where our profiles may stay the same, but they may just sort of within a certain limit we can improve, depending on how our brains are individually wired and configured. So yes, you can improve, but it depends on how much time, energy, and help you're willing to put into it. But if you are like, I'm a musical moron, and so if I could improve, I could learn to blow the harmonica, I tried. But how much time, energy, and help am I want to put into this while I'm neglecting the other things that I can do more easily and that will grow more rapidly? But that's not the question you were asking. The main thing with is that MR awareness is the first step. That's the foundation, and then we get to acceptance with all faculty, and even with students, because many top students don't want to hear this either. And they may resist it as well.
Exactly, because when we start late, like for the junior ones it's fine, but when we start
so you have to unlearn. They have to unlearn.
There's less time for us to do with them, work with them.
Yeah, you have to unlearn first, and that's that acceptance part. And sometimes patience is required, and that's why the 3-year plan is. And parents may be resistant to okay. Did I answer that? Yes, Steve. Other than the minus? Yeah. Well, there's a lot of checklists. There's a lot of checklists out there. But you have to be careful about quick and dirty checklists, about how they're used. So the answer to your question is other than a minus, no. But there are systems of assessment that can be done, but they have to be culturally tested out. And sometimes you have to they can be misused. That's why I say you have to be careful. Because even the minus profile can be misused when you just see it as like a label. Oh, I'm going to stamp this on you, right? That's what we do with tests, is we say, oh, you're a 105, and that means whatever. But instead, that's not how I see MI working. These are working hypotheses, right? That we then begin to describe, and let's test this out. That's why the sort of triangle approach is that dialogue of discovery. So there are some performance, and I have some list of these, there are some performance evaluation systems that take a lot of time and effort.
So to me it sounds like it would be great for wellness counselors in schools to work with career counselors.
Yes.
And perhaps use MI to really assess students first, help them, and then maybe possibly suggest possible careers for them as well, based on...
The MICE was used for 10 years at my local university with dazed and confused students who were like, oh, I'm not sure what my major is going to be, right? And that's one of its best use. Thank you for pointing that out. And it helped them every semester.
Yeah, like you like you pointed out, and that really resonated with me, that why would I waste my time doing something that's really hard for me when I have certain natural gifts?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't I choose a career that utilizes my natural gifts? And if I had known that as a young child, I would have not wasted so much time looking around.
Because you wouldn't be pleasing your parents.
Correct.
Because a lot of times our parents give us these infected.
But as schools, how can we help students really understand what their strengths are, and then choose careers based on that? How can we make that simple?
Simple.
Yeah.
Oh, simple. Yeah. Well, for every quick, difficult, long-lasting problem, there's a quick and easy answer that's wrong. And so, build intrapersonal intelligence. Right? If we're dedicated to that, with less evaluation, helping that develop self-understanding, then we go, oh, and I have listed these, oh, your strengths in kinesthetic, interpersonal coach are matched to real careers. Right? So then all of a sudden parents and the child can say, oh, this isn't just me, look at all these people who are very successful, who have the same strengths that I have. This brings me back to AI, that I haven't found anybody willing to do this yet. My Midas profile can link, data-wise, very specific personal strengths to careers. And that sort of matching, not to tell you that this is what you should be, right? But rather like, oh, this is a focus area that you should explore. I call it career exploration. Because I'm still exploring my career at the ripe old age that I am, right? Then we're always growing and changing. But if I headed this direction, my chances for success based on my strengths and my self-knowledge are going to be greater than going this direction. And that's where AI, I think, could actually be quite powerful to take real-world careers in engineering, medicine, and anything. And we have all that data out there, and then matching it so people can say, oh, look at this. My potential is best at that. Good enough.
Thank you. In terms of processes, would it be fair to say that MI should be studied by wellness counselors in school, not just the teachers, so they can recognize, and as well as career counselors, shouldn't be limited to classrooms?
That's part of that big triangle that I actually, the school piece is, because it is a wellness thing. When I taught it in a high school, I called it the health of yourself. Right? So you have the biological self, but then you have the bigger self. The health of yourself then gets built into that. So the answer is yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scherer, for a deeply insightful and thought-provoking session. On behalf of the whole GD Goenka team, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to you. Thank you so much again for enlightening us. Please have a move down.